From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Celebrating a life-saving medicine.
So if you would not have received that antibiotic, do you think you would even be alive today, Toby?
No, that's absolute.
And where it all began at a patch of ground at one ag college. The latest on what we know about a reported explosion at an ag processing plant in Decatur, Illinois. As USDA once again is expected to make revisions to the grain balance sheets.
They're also worried about what's going to happen on the acre side.
The key numbers we'll be watching today, right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the name on the cap matches the power of one's purpose. Pioneer, what's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Drought and dryness have continued to plague the Corn Belt, but will that force USDA to drop projected yields once again? The agency due to release its latest supply and demand report later today. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us. And Michelle, what will analysts be looking for in today's report?
The September crop estimates will include USDA's first objective field samples on corn and soybeans, and NASS can also adjust acreage if needed. Now combine that with some year-over-year changes in crop condition ratings for the first part of September, and traders are looking for lower yields. Average trade guesses show more than a 1.5 bushel drop in corn yield, cutting production by 100 million bushels. Now the wild card is harvested acres, as the trade is estimating an increase of 120,000 acres. But that's at least down from the over 1 million acre increase implied after the August FSA data. So ending stocks are projected to be down 60 million bushels to 2.14 billion.
Everybody's expecting that we are going to see lower yields come into this report. Just because of the hot, dry conditions that we've seen, especially as of late. But they're also worried about what's going to happen on the acre side. And then also there could be some concerns about demand, especially on the export side.
Soybean yield is also estimated to drop 0.7 bushels per acre, and with an increase in harvested acres by 140,000, it will result in a drop in production of around 53 million bushels. So ending stocks would be trimmed by another 38 million.
A 240 million bushel carryout is tight, and now if you potentially take a bushel off of that, maybe more, depending on just how badly the heat actually hurt this soybean crop the last 3 weeks, as well as the dryness. You're talking about a rationing situation again.
Wheat carryovers projected to drop just 2 million bushels from August to 613 million, with a slight increase in spring wheat yields. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle, and we will bring you those numbers later today on AgDay's social media channels. We'll also have full analysis tomorrow morning on AgDay. Now, ahead of today's numbers, USDA also releasing its latest crop progress report. It now says 34% of the corn crop is mature. That's 6% ahead of average, and already 5% of the crop has been harvested. That's 1% ahead of the 5-year average. Now, 52% of that crop is rated good to excellent, down 1% from a week ago. For soybeans, 31% of the crops now dropping leaves, also 6% ahead of the 5-year average. And it is matching corn for conditions, with 52% rated good to excellent, also down 1%. We're continuing to follow a developing story out of central Illinois, an explosion at an ADM plant. It happened at the company's plant in Decatur Sunday evening. The company says the explosion happened within its processing complex. Now, it's reported 8 people were taken to the hospital. The fire was brought under control. The Decatur plant is ADM's largest facility globally. Reuters reports it has a soybean crushing plant on site, as well as one of the largest corn wet mills in the world. Now, it's not known what caused the blast or the impact it will have on production at the plant. We're starting to see some cooler fall-like temperatures move in, but in Colorado, one area has just jumped ahead to winter. Pikes Peak seeing a couple inches of snow. Not an unusual sight for this time of year when you consider the fact that the summit is at more than 14,000 feet, but it is the first measurable snow of the season there. Other areas far below the mountains finally seeing some much-needed rains. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has a look ahead.
Yeah, Clint, we're finally starting to see some of that rain where we need it most, and that's coming off of the Rockies, but back down here to the south as well. The precipitation forecast the next 7 days paints a nice picture into Oklahoma and Texas. It seems like we went the entire summer in portions of Texas without any significant rainfall. The other thing that I'm going to point out is what's back up here to the north and to the northeast. What we're starting to see in the data is that Hurricane Lee, if it tracks to the north, we could see some rain bands spread back up here into Maine, also up into Canada. It is something worth watching. Any small shift in that eventual track could take the heaviest rain still out to sea or even bring it back here towards the west. So it is something, again, that we're going to be monitoring the next couple of days with Hurricane Lee. Otherwise, take a look at your screen here. A beautiful shot as we zoom in a little bit closer to what's going on, courtesy of Brett in Wyoming, sending this one in. Right side of your screen is where you want to zoom in. It's another great shot of a rainbow. Remember last week we had that double rainbow? Now, this doesn't mean this isn't any worse or better. It's just one rainbow captured by Brett in Wyoming. He says his cattle were right where he brought them, and while they're at the end of a rainbow, there's not even a flake of gold. We'll talk more about your forecast in just a bit.
New numbers from USDA show that in total, ag exports are running about 8% behind compared to last year. And ag economists say it's bulk items such as corn that are taking the biggest hit this year. In total, coming in at just over $56 billion, that's down 14% from the same time last year.
Exports of wheat were $5.4 billion, down 10% from this time last year. Corn exports were $11.7 billion, down 33%. And cotton exports were $5.6 billion, down 27%.
Soybeans, the exception to the rule, 2% ahead of last year at this time, with sales of more than $30 billion. And sorghum is also helping exports right now. South Ag Today reporting in recent weeks there's been a notable upswing in sorghum demand, surpassing the levels of the past 2 seasons by about 25%. Additionally, there has been an increase in the average basis offered for sorghum on the Gulf Coast of Texas. Prices are currently standing at $1 per bushel above the price for positions with delivery from this month through December. That marks an 80-cent increase compared to the previous year at this time. Now, China is expected to remain the biggest importer of U.S. sorghum, driven mainly by its livestock industry's demand for feed. A meat processing company has agreed to pay $300,000 in penalties. That's after one state says it found the company illegally employing teenagers. The Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry finding Tony Down Foods Company in Medelia. It says investigators found the company employed at least 8 children between the ages of 14 and 17. They say the children were operating meat processing equipment, which is in violation of state child labor laws. Now, they say the children, one of whom was only 13 years old when hired, performed hazardous work, such as operating meat grinders, ovens, and forklifts for the company during overnight shifts. In addition to the $300,000 fine, the company will have to hire a third-party compliance specialist to provide training and revise policies. While the company agreed to the settlement, it did not admit to the alleged violations of law by the state agency, saying in a statement it does not knowingly hire workers who are under 18 years of age in production areas. A lot of green found its way to the futures board on Monday ahead of that USDA report. We'll take a closer look coming up next. And later, we're off to the University of Missouri, where a below-ground discovery is still providing health benefits for livestock owners decades later. That story in the country.
Ag Day is brought to you by Endzone from Farm Shop MFG. Rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's a free semi-load added to your bottom line. What are you waiting for? Call to order your Endzone today.
Hostess is being purchased by J.M. Smucker, the 2 companies announcing the $5.6 billion deal on Monday. Smucker saying in a news release the deal expands the company's family of beloved brands in attractive categories with the addition of iconic snacking brands. Now, headquartered in Lenexa, Kansas, Hostess Brands was established back in 1930 and is the force behind things like Ho-Hos and Ding Dongs, in addition to Twinkies. Soybean futures on Monday extending gains ahead of USDA's big report. Michelle Rook is back with Sean Hackett to talk things through in Markets Now.
Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook along with Sean Hackett with Hackett Financial Advisors. A higher day on Monday, except for the wheat market. And Sean, corn and soybeans making a move, trying to price in some lower yields in the WSDA. But how much is already priced into these markets, do you think?
I really think that, that the market is probably fully anticipating a 173 yield on corn, a 50 yield on soybeans. I think that kind of a down move would not really provide a reaction in the marketplace. We would need to see something materially below that to give the market a reason to short cover, at least for a little while. Obviously, Michelle, if we come in above those expectations and we don't get as much of a move down, then there could be some further liquidation or some further declines or pressure in the corn and soybeans heading into what is going to be an accelerating harvest as we move along here to the end of September.
I was going to say, for the time being, we've been kind of moving sideways here. We haven't been able to take out $5 on December corn or $14 again here on November soybeans, and we probably won't until we get yield confirmation off the combine or what?
Yeah, once the USDA's report in September is done, then everybody who wants to match actual yields coming off the combine with what the USDA believes and what a lot of the private estimates believe, and then they either raise up or down what they expect for the October report. So the physical yields coming off combines becomes the story once this report has been digested.
So the wheat market was kind of a boat anchor, obviously new contract lows in Chicago wheat once again. Specs continue to push the short side of that market, Sean. Will they continue to do that? And is this just this Russian competition that we keep seeing?
Russia has continued to sell record exports week after week after week at a very low price, making everyone else uncompetitive. And despite the fact that the stocks to usage ratios for in exporter hands are at 25-year lows, that is not a bullish factor in the market so long as Russia is willing to be such an aggressive seller to any buyer that's out there looking into the marketplace.
All right, thanks for joining us. That is Sean Hackett with Hackett Financial Advisors and Markets. Now more Ag Days coming up.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
I want to start off with that temperature forecast later on this afternoon. If you remember just a little bit ago, we looked at where that rain was going to settle in and across portions of the United States, back down here from the northwest down to the southeast. Look what it does to the temperatures. So for a summer where it has been very dry, temperatures have been scorching 100 to 110 degrees, starting to eat away at that heat with some much needed rainfall. Now that's for this afternoon. More cooler temperatures back into the Midwest with the mid to upper 60s. As for your morning temperatures, cooler air is going to be sticking around and sinking more to the south. A couple of upper 40, if not 50 degree readings into Ohio, but also into Tennessee, where we're going to be averaging more of the 60s, if not the mid to upper 50s. Those are your morning temperatures. So later on in the afternoon, rebounding back up into the 70s in and across parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, also back out here towards Missouri, even into Illinois with that pocket of cooler air into Michigan, Wisconsin, northern Illinois, as well as northern Indiana. Again, those are the temperatures for tomorrow afternoon. Precipitation outlook, a couple of bullseyes regarding wetter than average possibility. That's the area that we looked at a little bit ago. So right there in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. And then back up here, just a sliver, but that is your first hint of Hurricane Lee, that tropical moisture possibly impacting the East Coast. As we said earlier, though, we got to keep our eye on it. There is still time for that forecast to shift and move and for us to prepare accordingly. As for that jet stream for the rest of the week, kind of setting the stage for a very fall-like pattern. A digging trough Wednesday into Thursday is going to bring the ridge back onto the west coast, which is going to keep things quiet and warm all the way back up into Oregon and also into Washington. By Friday and Saturday, that pattern starts to shift with a very shallow trough. There's Lee right there on the right side of your screen. Again, this is upper level. This is not what's going on at the surface with, again, that trough kind of pushing through. And that's what's going to kind of try and carry Lee out to sea. But that's going to be the next rain chance. It looks like Saturday night into Sunday into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Midwest. A pretty shallow trough based on what's going on with the jet stream. I don't know if you knew this, but it burns flat in Oklahoma. Cloudy, high around 75 degrees, low of 58 degrees. Pratt, high around 65, low of 53. Rain in the forecast. And as we'll go up to Montana, partly cloudy, high around 85.
Ag Day is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Save instantly when you buy 2 or more eligible Firestone Ag tires during the Go Harvest Rewards promotion. Visit firestoneag.com or contact your local certified Firestone Ag dealer.
The National Milk Producers Federation says it's applauding a plan to provide assistance for dairy farmers affected by natural disasters. It says the Milk Loss Assistance Program, administered by the Farm Service Agency, will compensate eligible dairy farms and processors for milk dumped to qualifying disaster events. Now, the years include 2020, 2021, and 2022. The events can include droughts, wildfires, hurricanes, floods, derechos, excessive heat, winter storms, and smoke exposure. Dairy farmers and cooperatives can sign up for the program now through October 16th. A team of researchers at Purdue University is getting a $1 million grant from USDA, the goal to help improve efficiency at dairy farms. Now, the money coming from the agency's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. One of the things researchers will be looking at, feed costs. Now, one researcher is saying that in order to make improvements in feed efficiency, they need to provide feedback to farmers in real time. They say if they can help improve the consistency of that feed, they will be able to help farmers manage that better. The researchers will carry out the initial testing phase at the Purdue Dairy Unit. And there's much more going on ag research-wise at Purdue. We're going to check it all out as Ag Day hits the road as part of our College Roadshow tour. Be sure to join us Thursday at Purdue for the taping and watch Ag Day this Friday morning for our College Roadshow at Purdue University. Speaking of university research, many of the industry's biggest discoveries happen there. We'll have next the story of how one critical antibiotic found its way from a Missouri research farm to the veterinarian's toolbox in the country. Discovery 75 years ago at one ag college proved to be a true medical breakthrough. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan recently visited the University of Missouri as part of U.S. Farm Report's College Roadshow, and she tells about some crop research history that uncovered some amazing secrets in the soil.
I'm walking in some big footsteps here.
Take a step on a Sanborn field and you're stepping into crop research history.
Oh, Sanborn Field is historic because we're the third oldest continuous site in the world.
The soil is also the foundation of medicine.
One of the interesting facts that is often overlooked is that in any soil, you will find antibiotics because it's just the nature of how these bacteria survive in nature.
75 years ago, this plot was home to a groundbreaking discovery.
A gentleman that was a former faculty member here was working for Letterley Labs at the time, Benjamin Duggar. He knew the director of Sanborn Field at the time, who was William J. Albrecht, who was the soil microbiologist, and he asked him for some soil samples from Sanborn Field.
Those samples weren't just taken from any spot at Sanborn Field. They were taken from plot 23.
He knew that this plot right behind us that had been for 60 years managed the same way. It was a perennial crop, but no inputs. We should have a lot of biology, but a pretty hostile environment for them. If any place could have an antibiotic, it's going to be here.
Later that year, they made the big discovery, one that proved to be a breakthrough in the medical world.
The aureomycin antibiotic in the tetracycline class is still very useful today because of their mechanism of action. They attacked protein synthesis in the cell of these bacteria, and they do not become resistant.
It was first discovered at the end of 1945 and then patented in 1949. It then underwent clinical trials, and one of the first recipients was Toby Hockett, who at the time lived just outside of Washington, D.C.
Sometime around early 1949, I got a real bad stomach ache, and my parents did not pay attention. And it got worse and worse before they finally rushed me to the hospital. It turns out that I had I had a ruptured appendix.
So if you would not have received that antibiotic, do you think you would even be alive today, Toby?
No, that's absolute.
But Sanborn Field isn't just home to the past. It's also uncovering potential tools for the future.
We've got a lot more aromycin discoveries out here. We just got to look for them. And it may not be an antibiotic, but it could be something as groundbreaking as that. And that's what gets me excited.
All right, thanks, Tyne, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on the Farm Country.